Good afternoon, this is Todd Colvin coming to you from the floor of the CME Group. We are looking at FX and the British pound. Kind of a quiet day in the pound. We've sort of traded that range since we made those new lows between 132 and 136. We're kind of holding that range, or 132, 135. We're holding that range, waiting for something. Yeah, there's a whole lot of news coming out of London, whether it's about Brexit votes or whether it's about data. And then you have across the pond, you've got what's happening here. So there's a lot of things that are waiting. The clearly defined levels that we're looking at in the pound are 136 and 130. If we get back north of 136, it's going to bring back more of a bullish tone, something we haven't had since the dollar took off back in mid-April. Likewise, to the downside, if we see 130 get broken, it's really going to bring on the sellers even more than we've seen already. So I think right now we're kind of hovering in between there, waiting for that it moment, whether it's going to be a bullish trade or a bearish trade. The market really hasn't figured that out yet, and the data hasn't really given it any reason to move outside of that range. So 130, 136, the big picture levels, we are hovering still within that 132 to 135 range. And if you look at the dollar continues to kind of trade with a bit of a bullish tone. Didn't see much of that today, although with there being whisper talks out of Mr. Powell's corner, Fed chairman, that the possibility of seeing press conferences after every Fed meeting, that would be dollar bullish. It wasn't really reacted in the foreign currency market today. We didn't really see foreign currency sell off, but it just kept the dollar firm for most of the day, most of the afternoon. That would be long-term bullish dollar. Obviously, it would suggest that maybe they're going to be Fed's going to be a little bit more hawkish, a little more aggressive, and they want to keep their plans out in front of the street. And right now, that is something that would keep the dollar well bid and would on long term have an effect on the pound, but we aren't seeing that today. And lastly, let's talk about that Brexit vote we got. One of the things, I think there was expectations that perhaps there would be some clarity, perhaps there would be some finalization, at least to who's making all the decisions, who's holding the strings. And while it does seem that Prime Minister May did get what she wanted, she had to concede quite a bit to get it. So the decision still remains in her hands and her party's hands. However, it's really no clearer who's going to make the final decision at the end of the day. There's some deadlines out to November and February of next year, but certainly a lot's going to change. And we know with all these agreements that there's an eraser at the end of the pencil that typically comes in and changes all that. So right now it was very pound neutral. Yeah, we saw a little bit of an uptick, I think, but nothing that would stray us out of the range. I think the closer we get to those levels, we're going to start to see volatility bid in the pound. We will obviously see the pound move around quite a bit as we get closer to those dates at the end of November and again at the end of February of 2019. So right now the British pound waiting, as most commodities are, for tomorrow's Fed meeting. This is Todd Colvin coming to you from the floor of the CME Group.